Okay, let's talk about scale maps and scale drawings. But first, let's talk about scale maps. Today, most maps are in navigation systems in automobiles. So, kids miss out on the opportunity to have to calculate a distance between towns or cities. Usually, you just input where your starting position and where your ending position, and a navigation system will calculate the distances for you. But 30 years ago or 40 years ago, when I was going to school, I had to calculate that distance because I used the map. I didn't have a navigation system in my car, and I didn't have a cell phone, so I had to calculate that distance. Well, on maps, if you go out and buy an atlas road map, you'll look on that map and you'll see a scale. And the scale is some number, 1/4 inch equals 45 miles. That's just the scale I picked. Okay, it could be anything. In the city, it could be 1/2 inch equals 25 miles. You know, well, in another town, it could be 1/8 inch equals 75 miles. So it's according to the map. But let's see how we calculate that distance. Okay. So I have here my town and your town, and I'm traveling between my town and your town. And I take a ruler and I measure the distance from my town to your town. I get 2 1/8 inches. And I notice on the map that the scale is 1/4 inch equals 45 miles. So I want to calculate on the map how many miles does 2 1/8 inches represent in real life. Okay. On the map it says 1/4 inch equals 45 miles. So let's do that. So what I'll do is I'll set up my equation and I'll say X miles is to 2 1/8 inches as 45 miles is to 1/4 inch. That's the scale on the map. So now I have my equation and I can solve for how many miles is represented by 2 1/8 inches. So this is a mixed fraction, so I changed that to a proper fraction. So that's equal to X miles divided by 2 times 8 is 16, 1 is 17/8 inch is equal to 45 miles divided by 1/4 inch. Okay. Then these are fractions. I invert and multiply. And so I get 8x miles divided by 17 inches is equal to 4 times 45 miles divided by 1 inch. Okay, that's 1/4. And we don't need the 1 anymore, so we multiply by 17 both sides. And 17's cancel here. And this is inch over here. Inches cancel, inches cancel. So we got 8x is equal to 45 times 17. And then we divide by 8. Divide by 8. 8 cancels here. So we have x is equal to 4 times 45 times 17 divided by 8. And we break out our trusty calculator, and that's 4 times 45 times 17 divided by 8 is equal to 382.5 miles. So x is equal to 3. X is equal to 382.5 miles. That's what x represents on our map. Now, if you want to check if that's correct, your equation here, you can plug in x, and you say 382.5 divided by 17/8 is equal to 45 divided by 1/4. Okay. And you invert and multiply it, so you have 8 times 382.5 divided by 17 equals 4 times 45. And you break out your trusty calculator, and that's 8 times 382.5 divided by 17 is equal to 180. And 4 times 45 is equal to 180. So that checks. So this is what the 2 1/8 inches represent on your map. So what that says is the distance between my town and your town is 382.5 miles. And that's how far I have to travel to get from my town to your town. And on the navigation system, it will calculate that for you. But on a test, the navigation system doesn't do you any good. You have to know how to do that yourself. So if your instructor gave you a test and gave you this scale and that measurement, you would have to calculate how many miles are between those two towns. Okay, let's see what else we can calculate from that information that we calculated on the map. We calculated 382.5 miles. Okay. If the gas mileage of our car, the efficiency of our car, is equal to 25 miles per gallon, if we get 25 miles per gallon in our car, then we have to travel 382.5 miles. We can divide 382.5 by 25 miles per gallon, and this is the miles we have to travel up here on the top. Well, miles per gallon is a fraction within itself. So what we do is we have to invert that. So there's 382.5 divided by 25 miles in the top. And then we invert and multiply miles per gallon to get gallons per mile, because that's just a fraction, the unit fraction. The miles cancel, and we ended up with gallons. So gas needed is equal to 382.5 divided by 25 is 15.3 gallons. So the gasoline we need is 15.3 gallons of gasoline. 15.3 gallons of gasoline. And if gasoline cost $3.30 per gallon, $3.30 per gallon, and we need 15.3 gallons of gas, then gallons cancel, and our cost is equal to $3.30 times 15.3 gallons. Our cost is equal to 3.3 times 15.3. Our cost is $50.49 in gas. So that's the information you get from that. And if you put this in your navigation system, it will most likely tell you how much gasoline you need and how much it will cost you, because the navigation systems today are quite elaborate. But you don't get the opportunity to do this on your own. Then you won't know how to do this. This is just a scale. And this scale is really a ratio. And you're setting up, when you set two ratios equal to each other, you get a proportion. So that's how you do that with maps. Okay, let's take another map problem. And rather than a direct route from my town to your town, let's say I have to travel down several different roads. And I measure from my town to your town, the first road, and it measures 1/8 of an inch. Then at the end of that road, I have to get on another straightway, and the second road is 1/4 inch. I measure, and then I have to get on another road going in a different direction, and I measure 1/2 of an inch. And then on the final road I get on, I measure 3/4 of an inch, and I'm finally at your town. So to travel from my town to your town, I have to travel down 4 different roads, and I take my ruler and I measure the distance from my town down to each one of these roads. And then I add them up. The scale on the map is 1/4 inch equals 45 miles. So I add all of these distances up. 1/8, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and that's equal to 1 5/8 inches. I want you to check my addition there. And then 1 5/8 inch is equal to 13/8. And then once I get the total distance, I do the same thing I did before. I say, well, X miles. Okay, I get X miles okay, I messed that up. X miles is to 13/8 inch as as 45 miles is to 1/4 inch. And then I invert and multiply again with my fractions, and so I get 8x miles divided by 13 is equal to 4 times 45 miles. Okay, divided by 1. And these are inches. And so I multiply by 13 both sides, by 13 both sides. 13 is cancel, inches cancel, and so I have 8x miles is equal to 4 times 45 times 13. Then I divide by 8 both sides. 8, 8, 8's cancel. So I have x is equal to 4 times 45 times 13 divided by 8. And that's equal to break out your trusted calculator, 4 times 45 times 13 divided by 8 is equal to 292.5 miles. So x is equal to 292.5 miles. And so it's the same with indirect route or direct route. You just measure the distances on your straight line. Now you can't measure around curves, so you have to measure in increments if you're going around a curve, which most distances are straight lines. And so that's how you do that, and that's very important to know how to do that. Okay, let's talk about scale drawings. When engineers and architects build buildings and build cars and or build gadgets, they take these gadgets and buildings and drawings and boats and cars and whatever, and they draw them on blueprints. And they can't draw an 18-story building on a piece of paper. So what they have to do is they have to scale that building down, or scale the car down, or scale the boat down. So they can't draw it on a single sheet of paper, so they have to draw it to scale. And when you see this blueprint, let's say you bought a home and you have a scale drawing in front of you that's an image of your whole home. That home is drawn to scale. So what you have to do, if you want to measure the real dimension, what that real dimension is, you have to calculate that according to the scale on the drawing. The scale on the drawing shows the length of the line on the drawing and how it compares with the length of the line on the corresponding object. So, if on the drawing it says 1/8 inch equals 1 foot, so you have to determine in a proportion what that represents. You're given one ratio, and 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. So you have to determine from there what the real dimension is. So let's do that. We have a scale here. We have 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. And let's say we take and want to see how long a wall is. And so we measure on the drawing with a ruler a wall. And we measure that wall, say that wall is 2 inches. Okay. So we want to know in how long that wall is. Okay. So we say X is to 2 inches as 1 foot, X feet, that's feet, okay, is to 1/8 of an inch. Okay. So we have X in feet, 2 in inches is equal 1 foot is to 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Then we invert and multiply this. So we have X over 2 is equal to 8 times 1. Okay. And then we multiply both sides by 2. And we have 2's cancel. So we have X equals 16 feet. And so X in real life represents a wall that's 16 feet long to a scale of 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. So that's how you do that on a scale drawing. Now, remember, if you have a scale drawing and you reduce the size on a copier, that scale no longer is adequate. 1/8 inch equals 1 foot because you've reduced the size of the drawing on a copier. So now you have to determine what the scale is on your copier that you reduced it to. If you reduce that to 1/2, then the scale is 1/2 of that. So you can't reduce it on a copier. You have to take the scale off this original drawing. Okay, let's say we're on this same drawing and we measured an area on this drawing. The scale of the drawing is 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. And we measured an area on this drawing. And this area we measured is 1/4 of an inch by 3 1/4 of an inch. This side is 3 1/4 of an inch. This side is 3 1/4 of an inch. This side is 1/4 of an inch, 1 1/4 of an inch, and this side is 1 1/4 of an inch. So we want to see what does this area on this drawing represent. So what we're going to have here is we're going to have y in square feet is to 1 1/4 times 3 1/4 square inches is equal to 1 square foot is to 1/8 square inches squared. Okay, this is the scale of the drawing. And the scale of the drawing, it says 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. But now we're looking for an area. So we say y square feet is to 1 1/4 times 3 1/4, that's the area, is equal to 1 square foot is the 1/8 squared. So that gives us y is to convert these to proper fractions. 4 times 1 is 4 and 1 is 5. So that's 5/4 divided by 3 times 4 is 12, 1, 13. 13/4 is equal to 1/164. Leave the units off right now. Okay, so that's equal to, and I'll draw a line down here, divide that in parts. So 5 times 13 is y is the 65. 5 times 13 is 65. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 is equal to 1/164. And we invert and multiply that. 16y divided by 65 is equal to 64. Invert that. So multiply both sides of this by 65. 65's cancel. So that's 16y is equal to 64 times 65 divided by 16. 16's cancel. So y is equal to 64 times 65 divided by 16. And that's equal to, y is equal to, break out your trusty calculator again, 64 times 65 divided by 16 is equal to 260 square feet. And so this is how you calculate an area on a blueprint. You measure the area with a ruler, and then you set up your proportions equal to each other. Your proportion equal to what you measured, the ratio with your ruler to the ratio of the scale, and then you calculate the area, and you square. This time you square the drawing scale, because now you're looking for an area. Okay, that ends this section on scale drawings. And the next section we're going to move to is sine, cosine, and tangents of angles and what they really mean.